guys, and warm welcome back to the channel. My name is Grace if you're new here, and this is the Rusty Thicket. So if you've been following the channel for a little while, you guys know that I am trying to get to this gumball machine. So we'll talk about that here a little bit more in just a second. But I just wanted to say hello to all of my new subscribers and to say thank you to all of my current subscribers who are coming back and watching all the videos. I love you guys very much. I took last week off because I have just not really spent any time doing any of my favorite things or my favorite hobbies outside of working on my small business. For those of you who are new, I have a heavily Goblincore themed small business. I do a little bit of everything, but I particularly focus on watercolors, but I like to branch out. I like to have fun. I love to go thrifting for things that kind of go within my theme, and generally I just like to be creative. So if you're interested in videos like that, make sure you guys check out my back catalog. I've got quite a few videos going. I am currently stationed in Okinawa, Japan, where my husband is in the Air Force, and we've got just over a year left here before we get back to the States, where we will be getting like out of the Air Force, and I just have so many things I want to work on and get done before we get to that point. So this summer I'm taking time off, and I will be working on some longer form projects for the fall when I come back to doing events, because it's just too hot here for me. And then I will slowly start transitioning into doing my stuff that I hope to have ready for when I hit the ground back in the States when we move home. Home as in the States, not home as in Tennessee. We'll actually be hopefully moving to Minneapolis, Minnesota. So I would love to know if anybody from Minneapolis or from Minnesota is watching. Please comment down below for me. I would maybe even love to pick your brain a little bit, because we are going sight unseen. Or at least that's the plan for now. So anyway, I'm just going to get some work done today. We're going to do kind of a little voiceover vibey video. I have 2 events, and then after that second event on May 18th, I will be done for the season. I just decided that last year my fall and Christmas was a little too hectic trying to bust stuff out as I was going, and I think it would just be a lot better to not subject myself to all the heat and humidity of the summer markets and just work on some things so that I can have just a chiller time doing it, and you know, really enjoy the process, but also be able to work on some stuff for, you know, the future. So anyway, we're going to listen to an audiobook, and then I will just do the voiceover for the rest of it. I'm listening to Crescent City 3 for those of you who are in the Sarah J. Maas universe. And I would also love to know your thoughts about that in the comment section below if you are a fan. So let's get started on this gumball machine, which we are working on for, I'm hoping it's going to be an email list like bonus. You know, if you sign up for my email list, you get to do the little gumball machine, and it's gonna have some little pieces of paper in it that will say something like free sticker, or you know, buy one, get one, stuff like that. But I'll get into that in the voiceover. So let's go. Okay, so as you can tell, I already painted the base of this as like a primer brown color. It was just the brown I had on hand. I do wish it had been a little bit darker so that I could focus on bringing out like highlights in the wood color, but I did have to obviously add a slightly darker shade than that. So I mixed some kind of regular brown with some black, and then I had the regular brown peeking through kind of as we go. It might be kind of hard in the video to see the differences in them, but it starts to get better as things, you know, dry and as we go along. I really wanted the wood base to kind of look like a stump, and then of course we were going to have some moss in between it and the top kind of clear section, and I was going to paint some mushrooms on that, which I did end up doing. You'll see in a bit. I really wanted this to, like, I could have just taken the red base and painted white circles on it and, you know, make it kind of look like a mushroom, but oh yeah, see here you can really tell there's some differences and it kind of starts to look like a wood grain. Technically, I guess it should look like a bark, but this was much easier. But I wanted to make sure that it just really looked the part, like it belonged on the table, like it was intentional, because again, aesthetic really matters to me, but also, you know, the people that shop in my booth and stuff, they're always telling me that they love it because of its aesthetic and because I've really committed to the bit, to the part, to the theme, and I didn't want this to be any different, obviously. My good friend Tiffany and I swapped. She actually got this on Target's website, and it's been on like back order forever, and since hers came in and I never got the opportunity to do it, she and I switched like another piece of small business, like tabletop furniture. You know, it's like a spinning pegboard, since I've built my boxes now. And right here I'm just going in and adding a few more highlights. The big thing is I need this to dry so that I can do some of those more defining lines and stuff here in a little bit. I did want to leave the door golden. It kind of made me think of like a fairy house kind of thing, but also it would just be a pain to paint that really, really shiny stuff, because there's the moving mechanism, and then the door, you're going to be constantly opening it and stuff. So I'm hoping that gold stays intact. I'll show you here in a little bit. The original top piece to this was like a little, it kind of reminds me of like the back of a toy that you wind up. You'll see it here in a minute. But it's that same gold color, and it was already scratching off, and I didn't want that to happen to this door area, but we're just gonna have to see how that ends up going. Alright, so I'm about to finish up this base. I'm gonna obviously let it dry in between. This is over the course of 2 days. I don't change my shirt. I'm at home. Yada yada yada. Y'all know the drill. Also, don't stare at my double chin. I know it's there. Alright, so I'm going to start painting the stems of the mushrooms. I wanted to get these in to kind of have the placement figured out first. The idea was that I would do like the first, maybe even the second coat on those. You know, I want them to not be completely see-through, but it's okay if they're not just like, you know, perfect. I probably could have used Posca paint pens on this, but it was just easier to do acrylic since I already had all that stuff out. But I'm going to paint the stems first, and then I'll add the red caps after, and do a couple of coats of those, and then put my moss on, because really what I want is for the mushrooms to kind of look like they're coming up out of the moss, you know, so they have to be painted first so that I don't have to try and paint behind the moss later. Although I do some touch-ups and stuff, for the most part this works out for me. I did quite a few. I was gonna do some large ones initially, but I just kind of liked keeping them off to the side. I still wanted to be able to see these balls, but I didn't want all of their color to be the focal point, which is why I did the mushrooms to begin with. I was just gonna paint the base, truly. But, you know, in typical fashion of myself, I like to bite off more than I can chew sometimes. Alright, and if you see here, I've already glued this mushroom down. I used the E6000, the cancer glue, and let that sit for a good couple of days, because this is what you'll be pulling to be able to get the balls to put them back in, and that's the original top that was on it. I just unscrewed that from the base and then glued the mushroom that I already had on. It was like part of a fairy thing, and so you can see where it was like coming off. The gold was scratching off of there. We're gonna add moss to that too here in a little while. Now this red was not going on very well. I knew I was going to have multiple layers of it, which is really frustrating. Red is always like this. I don't know what it is about red paint, especially, I mean, obviously it's cheaper. It's just regular acrylic, like your typical know, deco art, American, whatever deco art paint, and red is always super see-through. So I tried to do a little, just a clear sort of translucent base to start with to get the idea of where I wanted them to go. And then later on, when I come back in for the other coats, I add some black and a little bit of that cream white color to try and thicken up the pigments so that I didn't have to do quite so many. Plus I wanted the red to be a little darker to begin with. It was going on so thin that it was almost reading pink in some areas. So this is just a really quick blob it out kind of thing, and then we'll come back and add some detail here in just a little bit. I had thought about outlining these two, but ultimately I just decided I wanted to keep it, you know, more simple. As I was adding things as I was going, it was taking longer and longer to do, so I just wanted to get the clear coat on after getting everything done, and decided not to outline stuff. Now I might decide to go back later. The clear coat I have is like a satin finish, so if I wanted to draw on top of it, it would be pretty easy to do. Here I am just adding some of those fun little swirly highlights to give some stuff a little bit of definition and, you know, make it a bit more believable as wood. I think we all know what we're going for here. It's not supposed to be hyper realistic or anything, but I just want it to be magical looking, you know, like I've, again, been intentional. And you can see I haven't painted all the way up to the top or up underneath the clear area because that's where we're going to add the moss. So that was also done intentionally. It looks pretty sloppy until we start getting all this in here. Now I ended up not going with this little bitty moss. I just stuck with the big stuff. That little tiny stuff is super hard to do large areas of, and I wanted to mix them initially, but this moss mix that I have, I believe this one's from Daiso, was so good that I just didn't feel like I needed to mix things. Had to take a swig of V8. This is pretty early in the morning for me, maybe about 7:45, almost 8 o'clock. I'm already plugging in my hot glue gun. We're gonna start with the top part here. I wanted to make sure that everything was going to stick down to it because, you know, usually hot glue you kind of can't, you know, mess it up, but when it's really glossy surfaces it likes to just peel right up, and I wanted to test that out before I hot glued on top of my paint down there, but it ended up working out just great. We didn't have any problems. One of the reasons I did the moss on that, besides the fact that it just looks good, is that, you know, I wanted to cover that E6000 because I put a bunch on here. I want to make sure that that's going to stay because it's got like a little seal, like a rubber seal where you have it for, you know, so they don't just like fall out if it tips over or something like that. So it's pretty tough to get on and off of that. Alright, and here we're just gonna shove as much moss around the corners as we can. I wanted it to be... Really what I wanted was some not so messy moss. This stuff gets really scraggly and, you know, I don't want it to be overly manicured either, but I had to play with it a lot. So I've cut a lot of this of just like, you know, pulling strings and re-gluing things and trying to make it to where when it travels, it's not just getting everywhere all the time. And I probably will put this in like a plastic bag or something to haul it around just so that, you know, it isn't getting all over everything. But it won't be at every event. It'll be mostly at my bigger ones so that I can get some email signatures and some sign-ups started for later on, even though I'm not doing email marketing right now. I hope to in the future, especially when I start to do very large events, you know, back in the States. We kind of talked about Minneapolis a little bit earlier. One of my big goals is to do the Minneapolis State Fair. It's like a 7-day thing. It's massive. That would be incredible to do, but I am nowhere near ready for an event like that right now. So one of the reasons I'm taking the summer off is to just kind of start working on a few long-term projects that hopefully will help me sort of get set up for that kind of thing in the future. Alright, so we went all around, and now I'm gonna come back through and, you know, clean up my mushrooms. I've got a darker color here to kind of put a little dimension in for those, and a little bit of shading. Nothing too fancy, I just want it, again, to look intentional and like I cared. Had to bust out the little brush for this one. One of my favorite things about painting mushrooms is that they can all be so different, and they're really easily drawn and painted organically, I feel like. I have a lot of, maybe not problems, I just have a hard time drawing things strictly from my brain. I have to use a lot of references a lot, and mushrooms are like the one thing I don't have to worry about. So here's everything with the extra detail. I do actually go in after this and do a slightly darker version after I've sprayed it and everything. I don't have footage of that. It was just an after everything was done. I decided I wanted a little bit more definition in some of that. But of course we can't forget the little spots, so we'll go through and add spots to all of the mushrooms. I almost forgot this, believe it or not. It doesn't look like it in the video, but I was like, well, time to go put the sealant on it, and I was looking at it and thought, it's missing something. I also should have used a Posca paint pen for this part, but again, I had stuff out already, so it worked. Oh yeah, and then right after that, I decided, you know what, this little lip that the door and the little handle is on would be perfect for a little extra moss, and it just needed a little something extra, you know? So I have it kind of cascading down the front side of it. I think that'll be pretty cool. I also had this cute little wooden butterfly button, and initially I was going to put it on what's supposed to be like the glass area so it looks like it's flying around, but it was really, really cute on the moss. So I end up doing that here in just a few minutes, you'll see. So just a couple of dabs of hot glue for that guy, and then it is all ready to go. See, I think it turned out pretty cute. Blue wouldn't typically be my color that I would pick for that, but it's just what I had, and it just needed a little something. So here it is in all of its pre-sealant clear coat glory. I'm really happy with how it turned out. I'm glad I kept the little door gold. I did fix those scratches on the back there. I fluffed up the moss a little bit too, and yeah, I'm just happy with how it turned out. So maybe you'll see it in the next video at the next event, but the idea is to probably wait until fall. But anyway, see you guys next week. Bye guys!